What's your scariest traveling story?
I'll start by saying I love traveling. Or, I used to. After this, I haven't left my country since. It was about 2 years ago. I'd just turned 23 and wanted to do something adventurous, so I booked a solo trip through Eastern Europe. It was supposed to be a dream. Cheap hostels, local food, and meeting people from all over the world. For the first 2 weeks, it was a dream. Then I arrived in a small, picturesque town I'd never even heard of before. The hostel I booked looked amazing in the photos. Cozy, clean, full of young travelers. But when I arrived, it was off. The building was run down, the receptionist barely spoke to me, and the guests didn't feel like backpackers. They were mostly older, quiet, and way too interested in me. Still, I told myself I was being paranoid. It was just one night. That evening, I went to the hostel's common room. It was small but lively, with a group of people drinking and laughing. A guy named Andre invited me to join them. He seemed friendly, and honestly, I was relieved to meet someone my age. We drank together, and everything was fine, until I started to feel strange. My head was spinning, and my body felt heavy. I hadn't had that much to drink, but it hit me like a truck. I told Andre I needed to go to bed, and he offered to help me to my room. That's the last thing I remember clearly. When I woke up, I wasn't in my bed or the hostel. I was in a dimly lit room that smelled like bleach and metal. I was strapped to a cold, hard table, my wrists and ankles bound. There was a buzzing sound like fluorescent lights, and I could hear faint voices behind the door. My heart was pounding, and I was struggling to breathe. I tried to move, but the straps were too tight. Then the door opened, and 3 people walked in. Andre and 2 others I didn't recognize. They were wearing surgical masks and gloves. I begged them to let me go, but they didn't respond. They just started setting up trays of tools, scalpels, forceps, things I didn't want to think about. One of them leaned over me and whispered, "It's nothing personal. You're just worth more like this." I panicked. Adrenaline kicked in, and I thrashed against the straps with everything I had. I must have loosened one of them in the struggle, because I managed to free my right arm. I grabbed a scalpel off the tray and swung blindly, slicing one of them across the arm. They screamed, and in the chaos, I managed to free myself completely. I ran out of the room barefoot and shaking, down a hallway that seemed endless. The walls were gray concrete and there were no windows, just doors I didn't dare open. I don't know how, but I found an exit. It led to an alley behind a building that looked like an abandoned warehouse. I kept running until I saw a main road and flagged down a passing car. The driver barely spoke English, but he could tell I was in trouble and took me to the nearest police station. When I told the police what happened, they didn't believe me. They said I'd probably gotten too drunk and imagined it. But here's the thing. My torso was covered in bruises where they'd strapped me down. I had faint red marks on my wrist from the bindings. I went back to the hostel to grab my things, but when I got there, it was abandoned. No guests, no staff, no sign anyone had been there at all. The police didn't take me seriously, and I realized no one was going to help. To this day,